to the point where I was literally like, Heavenly Father, I cannot take any more of this. He's not getting better. Like, you can make this better, right? Like, what do what do you want me to do?
Last month, Sione and I got a chance to sit down for a bit and hang out with Raschel and Keaka from Life is Ohana, and they shared with us the meaning behind their YouTube channel name and why they chose it. It was a great opportunity to get to know them a little bit better and to have that reminder of how important family is. But before we get into that, here's a bit of a life update. First off, our Words of Hope campaign went way better than we expected it to.
I'm Caitlin from Utah, and my message for the world is hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny.
Today is the day. It is our Words of Hope Day, and so be sure to share your words.
We had some fun at a virtual summit.
And Sione ended up going on a last-minute, unexpected trip to Hawaii for a couple of days to take care of some family business.
Middle of the day, folks. This almost looks like an empty mall. No line. No rush for check-in. Take my time. Take my flight, boys. Just made a quick trip down here to Hawaii for a couple days, taking care of some family business, and getting ready to head back on another flight while practicing social distancing. Turn this in. Take temperature and Disneyland line. It's been quite the week, but here's Raschel and Keaka.
So we were thinking about a bunch of different names for our YouTube channel, and I think that was, as we know, the name Life is Ohana means life is family, right? And so as far as I think the reason why we named that was mainly because of the experiences that we have. And I think part of that I think you guys knowing our background as being members of the church, you would understand that, as we come to hear about our Heavenly Father's plan and the importance of family in that plan, that's kind of was our focus to begin with, right?
Right.
Now, as far as that plan that I would say that we've been through, we faced a lot of different health issues. So in that case, so for example, when my wife had Keilani, she came out and she was really sick. And she actually had sepsis, which means she had an infection in her body when she came out. And so she went right into the NICU right when she was born. And we didn't even have a name for her at that time. And I remember, I'm so excited, here I'm telling you about this video I made, and it was exciting because, she's just born and everything's going, but the doctor said, hey, look she's not turning pink. So that means, and so they checked her oxygen. She wasn't breathing very well. And so, so I just remember that first time here, it's my first child, our first child. Rochelle's over here thinking everything is great, but she, you know, and then I was able to go back with the nurses as they did all these tests on her and everything. And, you know, while they're sewing Rochelle up and taking care of her, I'm in the back kind of stressing out because I'm finding out that our daughter's having some complications. And so, you know, my dad was there and my wife's father was there. And so we, you know, like I said, we just didn't even have a name for her at that time. And her only being out of the womb for 30 minutes, we were giving her a blessing, you know, giving her a blessing because she had some complications. And so, I mean, that was one incident. And yeah, and then she was able to get better and things, you know, that it was just interesting how it was thrown in there. Cause here we thought we went from the happiest high in our life to a very, very low that we had never been a part of or even experienced. And so, but we were happy that she was able to get better there. About 2 years later, a little over 2 years later, Rochelle, she was pregnant, and then we had Jimmy. And when she had Jimmy, we thought everything was great. Everything was going well. Everything, you know. And then she started to deliver Jimmy, and we had lived in Logan for Keilani, which was a good experience for the doctor and everything. This other one we actually she delivered in Orem. And here she's all excited, you know, we're all excited, the baby's coming, everything. Well, Rochelle, so they got the baby was having similar problems that Keilani had, so he wasn't breathing very well. And then Rochelle, we had used a midwife that, and Rochelle had started hemorrhaging and she didn't know how to take care of Rochelle. So that was a very scary thing. So I'm here in the room and this nurse is panicking because she can't stop my wife from bleeding. She can't stop her bleeding. And it got really bad. She comes home and then she hemorrhages again at home.
Oh, man.
Well, anyway, so they had got that. They thought they got it out. Well, then she went home again and then she hemorrhaged again.
Oh.
And then they went and did another operation on her. So she just had, in the first 2 weeks of her being out of the hospital, she hemorrhaged twice. And this time they put her in ICU. And so at that time, I thought I was going to go to...
Jimmy was in NICU too.
Yeah, Jimmy was in NICU. He was in NICU for just a few days. So, but at that time, I was studying school. I was taking all the prereqs for medical school. And so I was very much involved in school. I think probably taking like 15 or 18 credits, somewhere. That's usually what I took, somewhere in those. But then I was taking care of Keilani, who is 2, and then I was taking care of Jimmy now when he was a newborn, and Rochelle was in the hospital. And so I was telling my kids this last night because I was telling them I was telling them kind of these things. We were just talking about them, but because I don't know if my kids really knew what happened, you know, so we were talking last night. I was telling them last night, and I go, I don't know if you guys ever knew, but the doctor came out and told me if she has to have any more blood, because she had to have a lot of transfusions, they said if she hemorrhages again, she'll die. And I just remember, I remember thinking that, and I'm thinking I have a 2-year-old and I have a newborn, and here my wife is in the hospital, and I'm going to school full time, and
It's finals.
No, not at the time. It wasn't finals. It was just starting. But anyway, it was just a lot. It was just a lot, right? And at that point, I was still kind of a very ambitious person. I wanted to go do a lot of things, and
You're still ambitious.
and so so then that happened, and we were able to work through that. And thankfully, about a month later, she was able to go in from being in the hospital a lot to not being there. And so, and over that experience as well, They told her because she lost so much blood and her hematocrit was so low that it would take her. They were thinking it would be years. It'd be years before she would get her energy back, right? Because the body's got to remake all this stuff that's in her blood that's not there, and so. So anyway, it was just really interesting. It was just an interesting time because, with the first baby, Rochelle rebounded very quickly, and she's able to go and do things. And then after the second one, she ran into a very much like a postpartum that lasted a long time. So that happened for a long time. And so anyway, but thankfully she's able to get through that. And then the next one that we had after that was, I have to tell you all these stories. Like I said, it's hopefully it's not drug out forever, but maybe explain some things. But it was right after my son's birthday. My son Jimmy, he was probably his 7th birthday, and Rochelle had just decked the whole house. He had like a Tron birthday party. It was really cool. It was really cool looking. It was really, really cool. And he went to bed that night, and our daughter Keilani had an iPad, and so, but she set an alarm for some random reason at like early in the morning, right? And Rochelle she woke up in the one room, in our room, and walked over there to turn off the alarm. And when she went in there, she found Jimmy. He wasn't breathing in his bed. And so, so here I was like 6 a.m, and I usually go to bishopric meeting at like 7. I was getting ready to get up and get ready to go. And anyway, she went in there, and here's Jimmy's not breathing. So then I go and I grab him, and then we start, we call the police, or the 911, right? And they come over, and on the way there, on the thing up there, he's not breathing at all. And, he was, it seemed like it was forever, right? It just seemed like it was happening forever, but he wasn't breathing probably for at least almost 2 minutes, probably. I'm just holding him. He's not breathing. He's black. He's like turning black, right? Like blue, like he's blue. Like he's just not getting any oxygen. And I remember the lady on the phone was like, yeah, you probably need to try to get him like you do CPR on him, right? And so I did the worst CPR on planet Earth, but it got him breathing again.
So not the worst.
No, it was adequate because he's still here.
So it was bad enough, but it worked. So thankfully for him, it was just enough to get him started. And so that happened to him. And then, we found out he had seizures. He had some type of epilepsy that we weren't aware of. Anyway, so that's where I met Landrick. Landrick and I had just met with each other for some time, and we didn't have like any type of way of monitoring our child. We were to the point where we were staying up all night to check on him, because everything we were reading on the internet kept saying like, oh, if he has a seizure, he should come out of it and he'll be fine. But if you start reading the reviews of people and different things, they would say, if I would have had this machine, my son wouldn't have died, because the doctor said they would have come out of it, and they didn't.
Right.
So if I have any of you guys have this type of thing happening, don't listen to what the doctors say, because we thought that, and you know what I mean? And so what we did is we stayed up really late every night, just taking turns watching him. And that's when like Landrick and a lot of his friends would come over, and actually they would come over so we could sleep. So for like 2 weeks we sat there, and for 2 weeks maybe we got to the point where if it would have happened again during that time, he would have died, because we were so tired. We wouldn't have been able to wake up. We would have been out. We wouldn't have been able to take care of him. And so So that happened. And then we were able to luckily find a monitor that we were able to put on him, that we could put on him every night in case he stopped breathing, and that we could check him. But it was just an interesting time. So that happened. And then later on, about a couple years later, Jimmy had some more issues that came up. They found some issues in his intestines where they had twisted like a garden hose and cut off. And so he wasn't getting food through, and then he almost passed away again had we not taken him in. I got to the point where I was literally like, Heavenly Father, I cannot take any more of this. Like, this is, I was telling my son the other night, I was driving to the hospital, and I remember it was like very much like I was talking out loud to, I was just very talking out loud. And I was like, Heavenly Father, he's not getting better. Like, you can make this better, right? Like, what do you, what do you want me to do? And I remember going through that, and every time we got to that point, you know what? I went to the hospital. When I got there, he was doing better. And then he just progressed better, and like I said, I think we've learned a lot of those different experiences that we haven't wanted to learn that way. But I think it's increased our faith. When it came down to it, I think as far as like the direction that I would have liked to have gone in my life, like I was very ambitious to do certain things, right? And I think Heavenly Father had a way of trying to say, you know what, this is more important than that. Right? And I think that's the that's kind of where we get the whole idea behind the channel name, kind of the life is like, life is family. When I see my wife almost pass away, that took me a little bit away, but then time goes by and you go back to what you feel is important, right? Like what you feel is important is like, this work is important, this job is important, this, my social status is important here and there, and you know what I mean? And there's like, I'm not an accomplished human being unless I've done these things, right? So you start comparing yourself a little bit. And so it finally got to a point where I just said, screw it. I don't care. I'm like, this is more important. The family is way more important than any of this other stuff. Right? And there's a lot of people that knew I was very ambitious and doing very well, and they were all of a sudden, I totally switched on what I was doing, and I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure our kids, we took care of the family, took care of our kids, and that, everything we were doing was because of them. Like, the way we were living our lives, the way we were doing things, and all the worldly things didn't matter anymore. Like those had no value.
Right.
What was more important was our kids were doing better.